Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the LFC Transfer Room, where you get all the up-to-date Liverpool news and rumours on a daily basis. If you're watching this on Twitter, please make sure to head over to the LFC Transfer Room YouTube channel, where you get to watch us, leave your comments, let us know what you guys think of the video, and anything that you want to get involved with, please feel free. And if you do head over to do that now, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. Really does help out the channel around here. The amount of effort the guys put into making content regularly for you guys to watch. And today I'm joined by Hassan, I'm joined by Race to discuss what's been a bit of a relatively slow news day, I think, for Liverpool. Not a huge amount's gone on. The big talking point, of course, is Mo Salah haircut. He's proven that he's going to stick around at the club. He's imitating Arne Slot. He's copying his manager, and we all love to see it. And as I say, guys, if you are new around here, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. And if you are on Twitter, head over to the YouTube channel so you can get involved with the comments. Really does help out the channel quite a lot. But yeah, we'll start off. Hassan, how are you doing today, man? You're good?
I'm fine. How are you guys?
Yeah, not bad. I mean, I literally haven't done this for weeks, and I'm so happy to be back doing it again. So yeah, I get to talk to some of the best Liverpool fans on the planet, so it's always a privilege. One of whom, Race. I mean, how you getting on, man?
Yeah, I'm just not like you said, not a lot going on. So I mean, we're gonna have these days over the summer and whatnot. But yeah, it's all good for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the problem when there's no matches on every day. Some days can be a bit of a slog. Some days can be news boom constantly because of transfers, and we're going to keep you up to date with it every single day, 7:30 p.m. UK time. Now, as I said, not a lot's gone on, but we're going to start off with the big news that's been coming out. The one that's sort of in recent hours, it's had some breaking developments on it. Now, Bruno Guimaraes, the Newcastle midfielder, the one who we all know and a lot of people seem to love, has supposedly got a £100 million release clause in his contract. And according to sources, according to reports, Newcastle are willing to let the £100 million release clause spread over 3 payments. So that means we could do 33, 33, 33. How long that is, whether it's 3 years over the course of a year, not too sure. But I mean, Hassan, what do you think of the news that Bruno Guimaraes is on the market? What do you think of the news, the release clause? Just your overall thoughts of the player.
Yeah, he's a good player. He has done well in the Newcastle side. He had a good partnership with Sandro Tonali, but after his ban, Newcastle looked a bit shaky. But I was reading, I think he was top of the charts in the duels. He's a competitive midfielder. I think he will move on surely because Newcastle is not in the Champions League. Uh, I think he looks like a player Pep Guardiola will go in for. I don't know, it's my feeling, and Slot and Edwards will have players who will cost not so much and will be transformed into world class players.
I mean, yeah, so Guimaraes is very much in the air. It, there's a lot going on. It's a bit of a domino effect thing. So you touched there that Pep might be interested in him. There's a lot of managers who would be interested in him, and a lot of it does depend on the Lucas Pacqueta situation at West Ham United. He's currently in breach of betting regulations. He could be punished, and supposedly it could be for a lot longer than what Tonali got because he was betting. From what I understand, he was betting on his own performances or his own team, but in a different way to Tonali. I'm not 100% versed on it, but essentially, if Paquetá gets banned, Man City aren't going to go in for him. They're going to look for someone similar, and that's Bruno Guimaraes. So, I mean, Race, £100 million is sort of the release clause that's touted around the midfielder from Newcastle. But do we really want to be getting into a situation where we're trying to outbid Man City for someone who, like Paul says here, Bruno G is not a number 6. We don't need him.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. I don't think in any bidding war for a player like Bruno here, I don't think we'd come out on top. especially with Man City. I mean, we know our financial situation. That's just not a move we'd make. And putting that much money, as Paul said, not necessarily a true number 6. I know like we had this year with McAllister, like he can play the number 6 and he's damn good at it, but long term, we don't want him in that position. We want him further up the field. I think there'd be a similar situation with Bruno. I think it's kind of a similar player profile there in the sense that like you want him going forward, and he's good. He's been tremendous for Newcastle. 7 goals, 10 assists in all comps this year for him, and he's a tremendous player. He's been sensational for Newcastle since he's come into the Premier League. Is in his prime. He's like the peak of his power. Like he is, the big buy for whoever's going to be interested in him in this summer. So, the release clause, or if anyone's going to outbid, like it's just going to be such a high price. And even with those structured payments, that's just such a weird thing, I think, for us to do, especially with us bringing up all the front office guys back. I mean, that's not really something I could see us doing. I mean, I know we've had different types of transfer fees and deferred payments and stuff, but it's just it's a lot of. I mean, it's not like you're paying a $40 million transfer fee over a couple seasons. It's $100 million you're paying over a long sum, and so that's just a different dynamic. And I just think it's a lot of money for a player that isn't going to fit specifically what we need. Again, I still think a true number 6 holding midfielder is what we're looking for. Even if our formations may change a little bit with Slot, of course it depends on what he's looking for. Could he play maybe a double pivot with McAllister? Maybe, but I still am of the belief of we need a true number 6, because we have plenty of other midfielders, attacking midfielders, and McAllister as well. And I just think Bruno would be it'd be a great addition, but I don't think the player we'd want to splash our cash for. So for me, it's unfortunately just not in the cards for us. It was interesting to see where he does end up, and of course Man City would be the one to get him. That's just how they do it. A player like Newcastle are looking to offload players just with their financial situation, and so it's I'll be curious to see how this plays out, because he will be in demand. Again, Newcastle not in the Champions League. They had their he was obviously played a big part in them getting to the Champions League, but now you wonder, a player of his stature, he's going to want to play at a top level. And so what does he want? What does the club want? And all those moving parts.
Yeah. And I mean, I think you perfectly summed it up. Like, let me know what you guys think in the comments, and Hassan or Race, if one of you wants to jump in with this or agree or disagree. I believe that a good number 6 is just essentially a brick wall, just someone who's just going to tackle. They don't need to be a flair player who's going to win the ball back and ping it forward. I just want someone who's going to break up play like Fabinho did, who will occasionally get it forward, but it doesn't need to be this. We saw it with Thiago. I mean, he was brilliant when he could play, but I don't think that's a good number 6 personally. I just want someone who's going to prevent people from getting at our goal is the main priority, rather than trying to pick a pass when you've got people ahead of him like Szoboszlai, McAllister, who I think will be playing further forward under Sloth. That can be their role. I mean, Hassan, what do you ideally look for in a number 6 with regards to not just for Liverpool, but just in general? What's the ideal sort of number 6 role?
Yeah, as you touch upon Fabinho, he was really crucial in our winning seasons. After him, we didn't properly replace him, and it showed this season. The biggest factor was us going behind so early in the matches. The teams, because when the teams are attacking, the genuine number 6 will be almost a third central defender. He clears the ball. With now McAllister, as good he has done in winning tackles, but in aerial and covering the gaps, Fabinho was sensational. So I think we need a player who is a destroyer, who can break attacks and counter attacks, and be really so I think we need a similar profile player who is tall, physical, uh, uh, I don't know how many players are available. Maybe Slot bring in his trusted player from Feyenoord, Wafer. So let's see.
Yeah. I mean, there's one player who's been getting passed around here. Is Weaver from Feyenoord. Now, I'm not a big stats person. I think stats can sort of mislead with a lot of footballers, can mislead a lot of people because there seems to be the sort of modern day narrative around football. It's all analytical, data driven. But Bruno Guimaraes, for example, is about £100 million. Tackles per 90, he makes 2.46. Ground duels won 13.65. This is per 90. Matt Weaver, for defensive stats in Europe, is in the top 93% in midfield. So he makes 14.74 ground duels per game. He commits 2.78 tackles per match, 1.55 interceptions, and he wins 3.27 aerial duels. Now, sticking with the sort of Guimaraes ring, I mean, Race, you touched before on the price, and it is very much a high price to pay for someone who, he's 26. Yes, he's got Premier League quality, but it doesn't seem like how Michael Edwards and that conduct business nowadays. They're not going to spend that money on someone who, not that he's not proven, but it just doesn't sort of fit the model. And Paul makes a good point here that Andre's price has dropped to only 20. Kefren Turam's only 13 million. Is there anyone else in this area of the pitch, in this part of the midfield, which needs so much improvement? Is there anyone you can think of who we should be looking at instead of Guimaraes?
No one comes to mind. I haven't really, looked ahead at what the options are this summer. But I will touch on, what you mentioned before and when Hassan said about, the profile of a number 6 and what we're looking for. Just someone who can, break up play, be that physical presence, be able to just kind of run around the field and make plays whenever needed. I think, Endo did a fine job this year, but I think towards the end of this season, you saw just, maybe, I mean, he is kind of a smaller guy too. He's not necessarily the biggest number 6. And so he was, all the effort was there. All the, the will and the drive was there. But at some point, a 30-year-old coming over from the Bundesliga can, the cracks can start to show. And I just think you want some more energy in that position and someone who's a little more just physically imposing. This is the Premier League, where it's a physical league. It's arguably the most physical in the world. And so you need someone like that. Fabinho necessarily wasn't the most physical player because he was kind of taller and skinny, but he was always, making the right tackles. He was tremendous at getting a foot in, his long legs. I mean, he was timing tackles, all of that. You have to be, there's also a level of intelligence you have to have. You can't just be a reckless, midfielder as well. So there's all those combinations that you want. But ideally, you want someone that's more beefy, considering the fact that, the other midfielders we have McAllister, Harvey Elliott, Curtis Jones, Gravenberch's a little bigger, but maybe he's a little more advanced. I still wonder if, and just to keep on going here, I mean, Gravenberch, if there's a possibility for him to move into number 6. I know there was kind of suspicion maybe he could, but he really didn't play that this year. I don't know if that's a solution we want to entertain or if Slot will entertain, because physically he would actually fit that profile, I believe. But he is also, decent going forward and whatnot. So he's a young player as well. So, it's there's certainly a profile to look for. I want someone who's, going to be just a rock in midfield and just, not be afraid to go into challenges and just be able to provide, some sort of, some stability there and not necessarily look to go forward. Like, you got other players on the pitch, they're going to go forward. Let them do their thing. Just clean up all the mistakes at the back and just send the ball forward and let those guys do their thing.
I mean, I'll keep it with you, Race, because Paul makes a good point. He says, I disagree with Lou. A good number 6 must also be able to travel with the ball, make a pass, and score the odd goal. I completely agree with that. I think there's got to be a balance. But what I mean is, I would rather someone who, of the two things, he's much more defensive-minded midfielder than he is a ball-playing, deep-line playmaker, so to speak. So he mentions Rice and Rodri there. Someone who's a bit more physically imposing, but is a little bit less flash and flare, if that makes any sense. He does have to be able to do both. I just want someone who's a lot more defensively astute, given we don't know how Slot's going to play. The more protection he's got at the back, the better. He likes to have two midfielders who drop deep into the centre backs. So more defensive-minded players there is a better example. And, Race, keep it with you for a second, then I'll pass it to you, Hassan. So who is there out there who would fit the mould? Who could we be looking at as alternatives as opposed to Bruno Guimaraes?
Man, I'm trying to think of put my finger on the pulse there. But I agree with what Paul said there. I mean, those are the two of the best holding midfielders in the world. So that's obviously what you're looking for. And I agree. Like, you want someone who's just more defensive minded and can put in a shot or make a long pass if needed. I remember Thuram from last summer. He was a heavy link for us. And I did like him. I think I preferred him. I look at his physical numbers. I know he was an opposing figure there. I can't say I know the season that he kind of had to share. I don't think it was.
He's really shined this season.
Yeah, so maybe you kick those tires again if you want to go back in for that. I'll still dig up my love for him again, I guess. But just someone that'll. I mean, we know the profile that we want. Someone on the younger side, someone who's going to grow into the role. Well, I guess maybe you could say someone who's a little more proven at this point, just given our squad and we're not necessarily in a need to get our squad younger. I mean, our squad's already pretty youthful in terms of just the players that we have. Maybe the front line you could with Salah and whatnot, but like it's just I can't say specifically who I got my eye on right now. We're still kind of early in that phase, but Thuram, I just remember him from last year. If he's still on the table there, you can maybe take a look at him.
Hassan, anyone in particular that's sort of sticking out to you immediately as someone that we could go for, or anyone that you would prefer we go for over Bruno Guimaraes?
This season, Adam Wharton from Crystal Palace, he has impressed me. He came in and he was really good, especially in the last games. I really want Stefan Bajcetic to be our number one, and if we can go for Adam Wharton, who is homegrown, he can we can have two young players in that position with McAllister with them. So I think it will be a good, because this season we hoped really good things from Stefan, but because of injuries he didn't play. But he showed that he is really intelligent in defensive positions, and he can get odd goals, and he can play really good passes. So I have high hopes for Stefan.
There's a good comment, which I completely agree with here. City have Rodri, Arsenal have Rice, Chelsea Caicedo. We can't win things without a proper DM. I hope we get Henderson. Now, I think the number 6 is, if you look at every side that's ever won the Premier League, they've all had a rock solid CDM. Chelsea had Conte at one point, Arsenal had Vieira, Chelsea had Makaleli, then you've got Rodri, Fernandinho at City, Man United, you've got Keane, you've got all these class central defensive midfielders, and of course we had Fabinho. It's the bedrock, I think, of your spine. It's so important to have that one imperious player in midfield who can break up play and get things going forward. It doesn't matter if we're on defense or attack. It's such an important player to have. And Hassan, Twitter's Penguin says Slot plays 4-3-3, switching to a 4-2-3-1 on occasions, very similar to how we play under the Jurgen, but with a bit more emphasis on possession. Now, with that in mind, with the 4-2-3-1, Bajcetic is a player that you've already mentioned. He would fit in there quite well because he's a good ball-winning CDM. Would Endo still fit that system, or are you in my camp? And I know this might get a bit of flack, but I think it might be time for Endo to possibly move on, given the age, given how Slot wants to play. I mean, what is the best thing to do with Endo in this number 6 situation?
For me, I think we should give Endo one more season. He's physically, he's not like he's okay on physical side, and he's only 30 years old. I think one more season we can play him. He will not be a starter, I think, for because we will play 4 competitions, so he can come in handy for the squad depth.
Race, I mean, what are you thinking about Endo? Paul says here he should stay as a bench player. We have nearly 60 games a year. I agree to that extent, but we've also seen in the past, like we did when we had Henderson and Milner and Keita and Ox, while these players are still around who can do a job to an extent, Liverpool are very reluctant to bring in more players in that sort of position. And until someone moves on, that's when we seem to react. So with that in mind, is it better to keep Endo as this rotation squad player and maybe promote Badge, or should we be looking at selling Endo, getting a bit of cash, and then maybe investing that money into a out and out starting 11 CDM?
Well, I think it maybe kind of depends on how we play and maybe how we set up, the 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1. Because a 4-2-3-1, I struggle to see how Endo can make a large impact, in a double pivot. I'd see him as more, defensive minded, not necessarily the most progressing of players and whatnot. So I think you try to keep him around, because he's probably a player who's like, hey, I'm at Liverpool. I'm a squad player. I'm just here to help this team win. I'm a stopgap solution. It was kind of known when he was brought in, although, we kind of featured him more than probably maybe he expected or what we kind of wanted. But he played well, kind of until the end of the season. But it's a nice player to have on your team, a player that's kind of takes on a lesser role. I mean, he's not really I would say like a strong leader in terms of, on the pitch stuff, but he is a veteran player. He's been around, been a professional for a long time. He's going to give it his all and whatnot. And so, if it comes to, we need to have some outgoing players to bring in a player, I think he would be kind of the first on the chopping block to depart. Because he's kind of the most expendable, because he's a player that we can cover for, and ideally that player we bring in is a number 6 that would take his position basically. So it's one of those things where I think the player is just kind of happy to be here with us, and there isn't a massive reason to move on from him right now. But I could see, and this could be a couple players you could say in the squad too. I mean, with a new manager coming in and just how they set up, the manager's to say, hey, this player just doesn't really, fit what I want to do. I don't really see a place for him. And so then you could say move on from him. It's just gonna be one of those things. And so it's sort of dependent on how we play, but I would like to keep him around if you're able to bring in someone else. And I see in the comments as well, Thiago's leaving as well. So that's kind of a spot freed up, and Matip as well. So there's a couple players, so I don't think you necessarily have to get rid of Endo to bring in another player. Like, you don't have to get rid of a midfielder, bring in a number 6. Because I think Endo understands that, like, he would kind of be a reserve. Because then again, whoever we bring in as a number 6, like, it's a tough position to learn, coming in the midfield in the Premier League right away. So you need someone that can, cover for him for like when Fabinho first came in, it took him so long to get adjusted and become our, in the starting 11. It took him a couple months. So trying to keep that in mind as well. And Endo came in just right off the bat, was just, hit the ground running. Again, he was a more seasoned professional. And so that's, another reason to keep Endo around for another season. And then the next summer, you could say, hey, we have our new, kind of number 6. You're not really needed as much. We have this guy. He's going to be our starter week in and week out, and there's just much of room for you. So then you could look to depart. And then by Chedic as well, you have him. I mean, I rate him highly as well. I think there's a role for him. And so then you kind of have your number 6, rotation or, whatever you want there. But Endo is certainly, when we look at summer targets and outgoings, if we bring in number 6, then Endo's kind of on the clock. You say, okay, how long, what's the kind of the future for him here? Because again, he's up there in age, and you just wonder how long he'll stay with us.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was my thing about him, is I like Endo, and I think he is a good player to an extent. He's solid. He's come in and done a job. It's much more so than we thought he'd be able to, given the fact that we were looking at likes of Caicedo, Lavia, and he came in, and I think he's done as good as he can. And maybe as a squad player, it is worth keeping him around. Like you said, he's got experience fighting relegation battles, which is a very underappreciated tool in a player's arsenal. I think being against the grit and having to really grind it out. I just think if we're wanting to cash in on him, it's probably going to be sort of now or never. I think he's only going to go down in value slightly. And in this new system, he might suffer. And, Liverpool is very much a sort of sell to buy club. We are going to be looking at, like you said then, perfectly, Thiago's off. That's a big chunk of the wages gone. Matip's gone, another chunk of the wages. I think Adrian's going as well, so that's another. So it just begs the question. I mean, Hassan, the guys did a really good video the other day where they were discussing who they'd keep and sell. But if we are wanting to fund this number 6, say if it is Bruno Guimaraes for £100 million, which is paying 3 instalments of around £33 million a year, who are we selling to fund that isn't going to be a detriment to the rest of the team?
I'm sorry, I missed the question. I was so distracted. I'm so sorry.
That was for Hassan. It was for Hassan anyway.
Oh, my bad. Okay.
Wow. Who are we selling? Who are we selling that's like not going to be a detriment for the team to raise funds for someone who could potentially be £100 million in Bruno Guimaraes?
Yeah, I think as you said, with Thiago going, Matip going, we already have the squad is thinning out. As we see this season, at one point we were at bare minimum, and bringing in the kids, they have done tremendously well. So I don't think we must sell this year more players. I think we should solidify with bringing in 2-3 really good players who can be the part of the team and really improve us.
Well, Paul makes a good point here and actually goes on to the next topic that we've got. He says sell Lucho, which, by the way, is a statement that I completely agree with. Let me know what you guys think about that in the comments. The next part that we are going to discuss, Johan Bakayoko, PSV Eindhoven winger. He is continuously linked to us. It's becoming the new Mbappe saga. Every day, he seems to be linked to us through some sort of news outlet or another. And today, it's coming out that he apparently has a price tag of around 50 million euros, which equates to about 40 million pounds. I don't work for TUI. I don't know the exchange rate. I'm sorry. But yeah, so around 40 to 50 million pounds, let's just say that. Now, it begs the question, who would be leaving? Because of our front 5, I can see 2 potential candidates to sell this summer. One would be controversial. I think one is pretty much out there. So Race, I mean, we'll get to Bakayoko in a second, but of that front 5, if he was to come in, who's the one that you're looking at and thinking you can go to make space for this one?
I think it is Luis Diaz. I think that's an obvious kind of decision based on, we have players that can, slide in on the left side of things. Like Gakpo can go out left. I think he can put in the shift there. Jota, when he comes in as well, I think he's fine down the left. And even Nunez to an extent, just to kind of put him on a different side of the field. Kind of that slashing, cutting, wing. It doesn't have to be a true, 4-3-3, type. Like we've been running that for so long, the 4-3-3 with that left winger and whatnot. And I mean, it's, it's kind of, you have to mix things up sometimes, I think. And Luis Diaz is, we talk about the goal scoring output from him. I mean, it's harsh on him because, he's coming in to replace Mane, if you will. And Mane was such an incredible goal scoring threat and talent. Like it's almost kind of harsh to say, oh man, Lucho isn't producing what Mane did. Well, Mane was arguably the second best winger in the world behind Salah. So I mean, it's like, it's just an incredible, player to follow. But we do kind of wish, the output is a little more from him. Although I do think, I mean, he's a great player. I think he's, I enjoy watching him play and what he can do. But just the end product, not necessarily like just the end product, just like doesn't seem to be as hungry for a goal, or just there's just something missing there. It's hard to say necessarily, but like it's you just want a little more from Diaz. And again, it's harsh, because we're so used to Mane and then Sal on the other side doing their thing. But I think he's one where we have cover on that left side, and so if you bring someone else in, I don't know if it's going to be on that left side. Like Bakayoko is more of a right winger; he's on the right side. I don't think you'd push him out on the left. But I think we have options there. I see Jota. Paul mentioning Jota's availability. That is definitely something of a concern. Although he's a player where his goal scoring record is incredible, and he's pretty underrated. I think both outside of the club, but for us, I think he's go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt there, just because you made a really good point there, and you can carry on straight away. Of our front five, Jota is our third highest Premier League goal scorer, and he's only played 21 appearances. He's scored 10 goals and registered 3 assists.
Exactly. So we know what he can do, and it's we sometimes with Jota we sometimes complain about the build-up player, the link-up play. Well, guess he just gets goals. He just gets in there and puts a foot in. And He just finds himself in the front end, and that's what you want from a striker. So I don't want to lose a player like that. But is he something like someone you're going to put in your starting 11 every week, and okay, he's our guy and whatnot. But I think we have other options that we'd want to put ahead of him. But we all recognize how valuable and great Jota is. So that's where I lean towards Lucho, and think I think he's the one that's expendable. And you have to look at we can get a good price for Diaz too. Like he's gonna cost a lot. PSG is kind of the hot name out there that are interested in him, or Barcelona too. They're gonna put the money for him. We're gonna get a great return on investment, because we only paid like 40 some million for him, and he's he's 26, 27 too. He's in the peak of his prime career, is what you would say. So there's I think that's the obvious one. Salah, I think he said he's going to stay for another season. Nunez, I think we're not going to write him off yet. I think that it's silly to write him off. I think he improved this year. Yes, he didn't end the season well, but he definitely improved, I think, and still has some things to work on, but under a new manager who sees. And then Gakpo as well. I think he's great. He had a really good end of the season after a bit of tough form throughout the middle of the year. But again, our front line was kind of crowded, and he was kind of trying to find his role even going into the season as well. So I think Diaz is kind of the obvious prospect to move on from if we want to bring in a new attacker, and if that is Bakayoko.
Yeah, I mean, Diaz, so just to sort of put a bit of emphasis on it. So Salah is obviously our top goal scorer, 18 goals, 10 assists. Then you've got Darwin Nunez, 11 goals, 8 assists. There's going to be people who say Nunez is crap, by the way. Will not hear a word of it. Then you've got Jota, 10 goals, 3 assists. And then Diaz and Gakpo are both tied on 8 goals and 5 assists. And Hassan, I mean, I'm not saying Diaz is awful. I'm not saying he's a bad player at all. I think he's actually very good, but he does have a sort of bit of the Bolo Zenden about him, where it's just head down, run, and he can often run into trouble. He can put himself a bit too far out wide. He does have the occasional moment where, like the Kyle Walker dribble that he did in the game at Anfield, and he just completely left him for dead. But there needs to be a bit more of an end product to him. Would you say that now is the time to cash in on Diaz, or would you be looking to give him maybe one more season just to see how he fits into the Arnsort system before making any sort of rash judgments on him?
Yeah, I think it will depend upon him and his entourage, especially his father, who's always talking about his dreams of playing in for Barcelona or these things. If these things continue, if he's having a good season, and again there are murmurs and rumors that he will move, I think we should have a player who really wants to be here, who does not think Liverpool as a stepping stone. So I think we really want players who are hungry for success over here. He's a really good player. He was doing really well until his horrendous injury, and after that.
Hassan has gone. Let me try and some technical problems. I mean, okay. while Hassan tries to reconnect,
Yeah.
Race, I'll go back to you then, because there's a lot of debate right now. There's people saying the two names I'm seeing the most of people who need to go is Diaz and Jota. But then there's, of course, Paul Smith, who's put the comment in saying Nunez has got to go now. Now, you made your thoughts on Nunez very clear then, that we should maybe give him one more year. I love Nunez personally. I think he's a frustrating player at points, but before Salah went to AFCON, I think he was arguably one of the best forwards in the Premier League. He has a role to play. And in this slot system, he loves an out-and-out number 9. You see what he's doing this season at Feyenoord with, the name escapes me, but yeah, he's got a striker up front at the moment who he's doing very, very well with. Would you, I mean, in this new system, would you say that maybe Nunez needs to go over on the left, or would you keep him as that central striker?
I would try to keep him. Well, it's a thing where sometimes as a player, if you're in bad form, you maybe try to move him around just to get him involved in different spaces and just kind of get his head in the right spot. Because I think he's had a couple goals this year where from the left side, just driving. Back to the one. I think it was at Bournemouth. I can't remember if it was in the league or in the cup, but the one I'm talking about. Just kind of a different side of things for him. I would still keep him as a number 9 because he's such a quick player, such a fast player. He's gives relentless energy, and that's the thing too that I think we kind of need to recognize. Like, he's always given 110% out there. He's running around trying to create chaos. That's what we always describe him as. You don't see his head dropping down. You don't see him not fire on goal. I mean, that's what you want as a striker. You want someone who's just going to keep shooting. I think I've used an analogy in basketball. I think Steven says this as well. Like, when you're a great shooter, you're going to keep shooting. You're not, no cold streak is going to shoot you down or slow you down. And so, that's what you want to see from a striker. And so I think you see a player who gives tremendous effort, and he improved his goal output this season. I mean, he went from just 4 assists last year to 18 to 13 this year. His goals went a few more goals this year. What I see is, again, it's the second year in a row where the end of the season, he just, kind of falls off or just kind of loses a little bit. And I think that's something, as a player and as a more seasoned professional, you hope that can kind of rectify itself and just kind of, it's part of the development of a player, right? Like, he's 24 years old now. He'll be 25 next year. I know, all the things about, him missing big chances and whatnot, but he still gets a lot of chances. I'd rather have a striker that gets in a lot of chances, that doesn't. Like, it's kind of a misleading thing. Like, yeah, you're going to miss a lot of chances because you're getting a lot of chances.
This is the thing, though. So Nunez, there's people in the comment disagreeing with it, and I think Nunez started off the season like a house on fire. Some of the goals he was scoring, the Brentford goal in particular, was a fantastic one. He won us the game against Newcastle, Nottingham Forest, Bournemouth in the League Cup. Nunez dipped towards the end of the season massively. But who didn't in that team? There's a reason we went from competing for the league title to losing to Crystal Palace, losing in the FA Cup against United, drawing against United. There's a reason that we dipped so much and lost the games we did, and that's because everyone dipped. It's not just Nunez in particular was a flop. It's not just Nunez in particular died a death. Everyone in that front line was criticised for not being able to produce any end product until arguably the Tottenham game, where we thrashed them. So while I can see the frustration with Darwin Nunez, and I can see the argument to be made that he is missing easy chances, he is a poor player at points, he, like everyone else in that entire squad, did poor towards the tail end of the season. So I think it's a bit unfair to categorize him in particular as a bit of a flop this campaign when no forward particularly shine towards the end of the season.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, 31 goal contributions this season, like, and people want to just kind of offload them and say, oh, there you go. Like, I'm not even saying like, oh, give him one more year and then decide. Like, you don't have to decide next season, but like, I don't know. It's, we invested a lot of money in him, and there's going to be a new manager, and it's just, I think it's silly just to move on from a player that's, has a lot of potential. We all see that. I think there's definitely a player there, and he improved this season. There's no doubt he improved this season. We saw he had that run of form, that showed that he can be a top player. It's just now about solidifying that in a longer run, and then you have easily a 20-goal scorer every season. I mean, there's definitely a player to be made. It's just because he misses these big chances and we all see it, we all understand it's a frustrating player, but you have to recognize the talent that is there and just how special a player he could become. And I'm not ready to give up on him at any time soon.
Hassan, what do you think of the Nunez debate? Like, is it a sort of, never give up? Love the name, by the way. Makes a good point. Sorry, guys, the Nunez debate is this simple. If we have Watkins up front, do we win the league? Yes. Isak, yes. Alvarez, yes. Jota, probably. Nunez, definitely not. Hence, good enough now.
Never give up.
I think it's a bit of a sort of, if my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle, but she's not kind of thing. Like, there's no guarantee just because we have one of them up front that we're suddenly brilliant. They might do. I can't, I'm not the sort of, I don't have a crystal ball. But Hassan, what do you think of that? I mean, can we win things with Nunez up front, or is it time to maybe start looking elsewhere, like a Johan Bakayoko?
Yeah, I'm with you guys, and on the chat also with Stefan and Rigo, we are always defending him because, as Ray said, that he has definitely improved this season. Um, and as Klopp said, because he is too good, he's constantly in those situations. And I really agree with you that it was not just him who was of form. There were a lot. Salah was not himself. There was no one who was scoring for fun. And if we look, he saved us at Newcastle. Uh, I think it was against Brentford, or he scored a last
Forest.
minute. Yeah. What I really like him, he's hungry to be a success. He gives his all, uh, and to miss chances, you have to be in those positions. I think a fresh start for him. It will be his first full season with us under the belt. Now a new manager coming in, and who is known for making players better, especially the forwards. So I'm not ready to give up on him just yet. I really want a good uh, season for him with new manager.
Mm. Yeah, I think as much as we wanted Klopp to stay until he was this sort of like brain in a jar kind of thing, I think it was the time for us to move on. An onslaught system, from what we hear, there's a lot of players who are going to benefit from it massively. Nunez is one in particular who I think is going to get chance after chance. And I think he's going to benefit as well from having the number 10 get in the box alongside him. He's not going to be so reliant on, if you don't finish it, all the focus is on you. There's going to be other players surrounding him who are going to try and create chances, who are going to try and score goals. So, Hassan, like, is there anyone else who you think needs to benefit from this onslaught system? Is there anyone who you look at and think you're going to excel when the new manager comes in?
For me, definitely it's Harvey Elliott. Uh, I think he will be really good fit for him, and he will towards the end of the season he really showed his qualities, and Klopp said that he has a regret of not playing him more uh, in the team. So I think with his creativity, his left foot, I think if we play him at number 10, I think he will be a massive uh, player for us in the next season.
Yeah. Yeah, Elliott's been, I mean, this season's been his breakout season. And I think that under Onslaught we'll get the same sort of results, to be honest. I think he'll really excel. Race, I'll put it back to you then, because I suppose we'll go back to Johan Bakayoko. Like, do you know anything of the player? Is there anything about him that you sort of think you'd be great for this squad? Or is there an argument to be made that we don't need to be looking for wide players at this moment in time?
Well, I think certainly on our list of transfer this summer, I think a number 6 and central defender are higher up on our list of targets. So this would kind of be a a secondary or third options for us. But if we are looking to bring in basically for Bakayoko's sake, a right winger, basically, Salah, he says he's going to be here for another year, but beyond that, I mean, it's we have to unfortunately think about his future with us. How long is he going to be with us? And so you have to think about his backup, his replacement. And so Bakayoko, I think, would be an interesting, player to bring in, as that reserve. It'd be a hefty price, I think, for kind of someone who would be a backup to Salah, because Salah plays every week, week in, week out. I mean, his reliability, availability is second to none. I know he had an injury problem this year, but by and large, he's going to be your week in, week out starter, especially with us back in the Champions League. So it'd be a lot to pay for a player who I would definitely prefer to be on the right side, the right winger. He's left-footed, can cut in. Just watching some clips of him, we've talked about him before on our stream. I like him a lot. I think he would be an interesting player to bring. I don't have too much concern about coming over from the Dutch league, just because I'm confident that our squad and staff would get the most out of him. Especially with our manager too coming from the Dutch league, so maybe there's a bit of a connection, bit of a play style thing there. I think it's just down to, are you ready to get the Salah replacement ready to go, or not necessarily replacement, I should say, because it's gonna be impossible to replace Salah, but the next man up in that position. Do you see this player as being that next person? It's hard to obviously project that, but I do like Bakayoko. Just he had just to quickly look at his numbers this season. He had a good season with PSV. He's going to be a player who's going to be rising in costs, and so if you can get him this summer, because I figure if he has another good season next year, his price tag is going to rise even more. Just looking at 14 goals and 14 assists in all comps, so I mean that's what you want to see out of a winger too. He's got the production there. He improved as well from the past season to this season, so you're seeing that development as well, and still a young player too, 21 years old, and so I think it'd be a really interesting addition. I know there's some other options out there for a wide player if we're looking at, but just to focus on Bakayoko, I think it'd be a great player, and it's a price that, again, it's a little steep for just kind of mainly a reserve. If for some reason Salah moves on this summer and you need to bring in a player, then maybe the price, you can justify the price. But I think it's a little high, especially given our other priorities this summer. If there is somehow an excess amount of money that, a war chest that we were promised last summer, if that's somehow back this season, if that's on the cards, and certainly entertain this deal. So I would certainly be fine with bringing it back. I think he'd be a player too that would accept, as a younger player, kind of taking a back seat a little bit still. I mean, recognizing that he's still got a ways to go in his development, but a move to the Premier League, a move to a top club like us would certainly be, you would think, an intriguing prospect for himself.
Yeah, and he's 21 years old as well, so he's got time on his side, and that's very much the FSG model, so to speak. Buy him young, develop him, sell him at a high price. So that could potentially be something that we see. You touched on his stats there, and 14 goals, 14 assists is very good. He's a player who, when I spoke to Michael Statham when we were discussing Klopp, that video is on the channel as well if anyone wants to go watch it, he said that Bakayoko could be a very good player, but that there's other clubs who are eyeing him up. Most notably, I think Man United were also in the race for him. Now, Hassan, with Bakayoko, obviously, it's the big one that seems to be coming up, and there's a club's going for a signature. And I'm going to put the toughest question to you, and then we're all going to give our thoughts on it. If he comes in, he's a left-footed winger. He'd be on the right-hand side, and you said he could be a backup to Mo Salah there, race. But are we potentially seeing the beginning of Mo Salah leaving Liverpool? There's no evidence to any of it. There's no proof of any of it. It's just a question, just speculation. But is it possibly time to cash in on Mo Salah while he still has a year on his contract, while the Saudi League is still looking for big players with big price tags? Is it possibly something to consider if we are looking at bringing in a player like Johan Bakayoko for 50 million? If Bruno Guimaraes is possibly coming to us for around 100 million, is it time to sell Salah to create this high level of funding needed to rebuild the squad in Arne Slot's image?
I think with Salah, I think he's still really hungry for achieving many things, chasing a record after record. He's really ambitious and he works like a machine. This was the first season he had injury troubles, which we have never seen before. So I think maybe one more year and we give him an extension of further 1 year. So if he does not, he have troubles in this year, maybe we can sell him of next season to a Saudi club and demand a high fees because there's no indication from him that he's looking for a move. Uh, uh, to go to Saudi is almost like a retirement league. So I think he himself think that he can offer more and he can achieve more things here with his ambition and his fitness.
Yeah, and I mean, Paul makes a good point. He says that, Lou, I've heard that Salah's not interested in going to Saudi, at least not now. He wants Champions League football and his family love life in the UK. There's no evidence to anything I'm suggesting. I'm just putting the question forward of if Saudi or someone did come in for that 150 million for Salah, is it the best option to maybe cash in on him? Because Race, I'll put this one to you. There's this debate up in the air at the moment that when Salah's been playing recently, the whole team has to change their system just to suit him. And there were moments where it seemed like it was hindering us after he came back from AFCON. When he was gone, we seemed to be a bit more free flowing. When he came back, we looked a bit more stunted at points. I adore Salah, but what's your thought on this? Like, is there an argument to be made that maybe it's time to cash in on Salah while he does still have the year on his contract?
It's it's such a tough conversation to have when you consider, now with Saudi throwing, hundreds of millions of dollars around, it's, do you capitalize on that? I mean, that Salah's not going to be here forever, and you don't know when that dip in form is going to be. Was the end of this season kind of the tea, showing that? But again, kind of the team as a whole was flat. So is that a Salah thing? Is that kind of the team thing? Was it Klopp's tactics just kind of running their course and kind of just not working? I mean, there's a lot of different things to consider. I think as you see these top class players, go into the later years of their career, you see them kind of change positions, change how they play. Kind of, I think at the beginning of this year, Salah was just an excellent creator. He was really good at finding players and I think just maybe creating a little more. With Nunez, kind of firing and all the other players that we have. I just wonder if there's a future where Salah, you play him kind of more through the middle, and that's kind of what the next step in his career is, or play him more as a central attacking. I don't know. It's just something you go through with some of these older players. These top class players. You have to kind of, you want to keep them on the field, so you kind of find them where's their best skill set now. More central, as Paul kind of mentioned. Was that through the middle? Because we've seen him play through the middle in the past, and he's a tremendous player. He can do that. It's just a matter of do we have other players like Nunez or Gakpo that you want to play through the middle as well? I definitely want to keep Salah around because he's such a rock for us. He's so reliable. He's such a good player. I haven't seen, I'm not gonna, after the poor end of the season, gonna write him off and say, oh, we need to cash in now. I still think there's he's gonna be a fine player for us next season, but it is something to consider. Do you want to get that money for him if it's going to be over 100 million that you're not going to get? Simply, you're actually not going to get that from anywhere else in the world. It really is a quandary there, and just what do you do with a top class player, and if you're ready to bring in those bring in those replacements for him.
And Paul says best, you don't improve by getting rid of your best player. I think Salah is one of the greatest players to play in the Premier League. I think he is the best right winger to play in the Premier League. I think he needs some sort of he needs to either go on the Anfield walk alongside the stadium as one of the bench players, one of the greatest of all time in the history of this club. But the debate is there as to whether or not he stays or goes. I personally want him to stay until the day he retires, but we know that's probably not going to happen. Is he in the decline, though? I mean, Hassan, like it's been touched on by yourself and Race here that maybe the end of this season or last season, should we say now, was the beginning of the decline for him? Or do you think it was just because the whole team was having a bit of a dip? He'd just come back from AFCON, just come back from injury, which doesn't happen a lot for him. That he couldn't get back up to speed given the intensity of the season and how many competitions we were in. So what's your thoughts with it?
As you said, with AFCON, he was coming back with an injury, and he meant when he came in, it was all the things were really dependent on the results. It was, I think, when he first came in, it was too early for him. So there was a recurring of his injury. So I think it will all depend on the new manager coming in and a new system in the preseason. Let's see how it goes. But I don't think it was a declining moment. It was a really tough situation for the whole team.
Yeah, no one really excelled, no one really shined. And yeah, I think it was just a difficult period. I personally, I don't want to see Salah go, but if Salah do come back in with that £150 million offer, it's going to be hard to sort of turn it down. Whether or not he'd go there, whether or not they would, whether or not he wants to stay at Liverpool, which I think he said he does, remains to be seen. But Race, I'll put the last question to you, and it's just a bit of a fun one, just one that's just to stir up the comments a little bit. But mind you, actually, before we do, Paul Linder just made the point. Luka Modric is still going strong at 38. Why are we talking about Salah decline? He's so fit. I think the only difference is Modric is in a midfield where he's in a league where he doesn't have to do too much. He's got time to pass the ball. He's a deep line playmaker, so to speak. He doesn't have to get too physically involved, whereas Salah is a winger. He's our one we expect to score the most goals in a season. He's the one who has to continuously try and make things happen. I think that's maybe why you see forward players don't particularly last as long as midfielders do, because they've got to, they've got to be a bit more physically about them, I think, personally. But Race, I'll put the question to you, the one that's going to stir up the comments when we give our opinion here. But Torres, Suarez, Salah, give me the order of the three, just for a bit of a game. And then Hassan, I'll pass the same one to you.
I'll go. I think I'll go in reverse order. I'll go Salah, Suarez, Torres for me.
Is that best to worst, or is that
best to worst? Best to worst.
Okay.
Best to worst. Yep.
Hassan, same question to you.
Exactly the same. What Salah has achieved, those two players were not able to. Second is Suarez because he was world class. He single-handedly almost made us champions. And I love Torres. He was exceptional, but it was for a limited time period. So with all the memories and all the winnings and under Klopp, I think Salah has to be at the top.
You know what? I completely agree. It goes Torres, Suarez, Salah. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below when you go over to the YouTube channel to subscribe, like, which I've asked you to do. So please make sure you go do that. We're going to shoot in a second, guys. As I say, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. You have to go over to the YouTube channel to do it. If you are watching on Twitter, it doesn't let you do it any other way on that. And yeah, just also want to say a big thank you to the people who have commented saying that it's great to see me back. Thought you'd abandoned us for greener pastures. Never. It's the greenest place. So I'm not going anywhere, just to de-stress that. Great to see you back. Thank you very much. And yeah, just want to say thank you to Race and Hassan for both coming on today. It's been absolutely fantastic to be back here, especially with you guys. You've been absolutely superb. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Make sure you tune in every single day, same time, 7:30 p.m. UK time for daily streams. And there's content going up regularly on the channel, especially with the Onslaught era coming into Liverpool Football Club. Thank you all very much for watching. Thank you, Race and Hassan, and I will see you all in the next stream.